Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Open line through till 1. Now, I don't know about you, but quite a few people have contacted Mannin Line being concerned about COVID at the moment and what the situation is with this new variant. I don't know whether there are people in your social circle who have tested positive. We certainly have people here at the radio station that have tested positive. Some suffering, some not at all. I just wonder what's happening where you are. Department of Infrastructure's offered to provide masks, sanitizer and gloves to bus drivers who were fearful of contracting COVID-19. It's responded to concerns raised by a bus driver who's unhappy with the lack of protective screens on the island's buses. And it's interesting, some supermarkets and some shops have got screens up, some haven't. Just wonder how you're feeling about that. And remember, oh no, please. Don't think we could face all that again. I don't think we could face the lockdowns or anything like that. What are your thoughts on this? And please, Douglas Council's asking, would you please not go to the old tip amenity site and fly tip? Apparently, people have been fly tipping at the old civic amenity site. £5,000 fine. Well, up to a £5,000 fine if you leave items outside the gates. It's an offence under Section 1 of the Litter Act. You've got to go to the new site, which of course will be under some pressure as from next week, because there's a traffic warning on what's happening there. The Newcastle Town Road is going to be closed between Spring Valley Roundabout and the bottom of Richmond Hill from next Monday, the 11th, for 7 weeks, 27th of October. This is for resurfacing. The junction at the bottom of Richmond Hill will be reopened. Oh, crikey, they're reopening it. And traffic will be diverted along the Energy from Waste access road to the top of Queweg Hill. So just a mere 7 weeks starting next Monday, so something to be aware of around there. I had lots of feedback last week when we were talking to Kerry Sharp and Laurie Hooper about fostering on the Isle of Man and what the situation is regarding fostering, but also regarding adoption. Now, the Health Service reissued pleas for more families or individuals to consider fostering, as data obtained from Manx Care shows fostering at the Isle of Man is at a 4-year low. Now, Manx Care believes the increasing the amount of carers by 6% should address the shortage. You heard last week 79 people in care, but in terms of fostering, 27 children being cared for by 26 carers. We're told that others staying in residential homes could benefit from a home setting. So again, if it's something that affects you or something that you have an opinion on, certainly Kerry Sharp was vocal about it last week as what needs to be done and what we need to do to look after children in care. The Assistant Director of Children and Families at Manx Care is Julie Gibney, and Julie Gibney talks about fostering and adoption.
So in May, during Fostering Fortnight, we had a soft launch of our fostering recruitment strategy. So far, we've had 5 inquiries, and those 5 inquiries are progressing through to the next stage of assessment. It's hopeful signs, and with a more robust strategy and recruitment drive, hopefully we will get more. I will say, though, because we've had 5 inquiries, that doesn't necessarily mean that they will all come to fruition at the end and become foster carers. Things happen in between, people change their minds, but it's very hopeful at the moment, yes.
So talk to us about that stage then. Once someone inquires about becoming a foster carer, what steps do they have to go through?
So you make the inquiry, and then somebody from the fostering team will get in touch with you and explain in a little bit more detail. Then you will have a training event which gives you a lot more detail about what to expect, and then you will progress through the assessment stages. So from point of inquiry to final presentation at panel to be authorised as carers should take around about 6 months.
There is quite a distinct difference, far fewer being adopted year on year than there are fostered.
And that is to do with obviously the age that the child comes into care. It depends on their plan. So their plan for permanence might not be adoption for various reasons. So if a child has got a plan for adoption, and at the moment we have 4 on island, then we progress that adoptive placement for these children. But it's not always the plan for all looked after children. We do have some children in residential care that at some point it would be appropriate for them to transition into a foster placement where they're living in a family home. Foster carers get a foster carer's allowance and a child allowance to enable them to care for the child.
So what barriers are we talking about when looking at more recruiting more foster parents on the island? What seems to be the big things that people say, I'd love to adopt, but unfortunately I've got this going on? What does that tend to be?
I think sometimes people are under a misconception that there's a different criteria to what there is, because on occasion we get people in and say, I didn't know that I could be single, I didn't know that I could identify as any gender or be of any ethnic background. People have got an idea of what it means. When they come to us and we give them the proper information, they realise that that's not the case.
That's Assistant Director of Children and Families at Manx Care, Julie Gibney, talking about fostering and adoption on the Isle of Man, and a 4-year low for fostering. If it's something that concerns you, something you have any thoughts on, by all means, do get in touch. We got lots of data just regarding adoption, which I'll give you. I'll sprinkle throughout shows, but it's interesting as to where we stand with this. Children in care are really everybody's responsibility, and the fact that they, the need for them to get a good pathway for their life in the future really concerns everybody. Actually, in a couple of weeks' time, I think it's September time. Yes, it is, actually. It's Thursday the 14th. Teresa Cope. Actually, what's that? That's a week tomorrow, isn't it? Teresa Cope is going to be here, Chief Exec of Manx Care. Next Tuesday, Alex Allenson, MHK Treasury Minister, will be on Mannin Line next Tuesday the 12th. And a week tomorrow, Teresa Cope will be in from Manx Care. And David's with us now. Hi, David.
Andy, that's fortunate, the subject you're going to raise. I tried to look on Manx Radio's website again, but couldn't see the story, but I heard it the other day there about the overspend at the hospital, or the predicted overspend at the hospital. And we're not talking about a few grand here. We're talking about millions. And I just wonder, how are we keeping a rick? Because when this Manx Care board was conceived, it was supposed to save us money and look at the savings it could have. But as far as I've looked, and I've not criticised them totally, because I've been through the system and benefited from it, but are we taking a practical look at what actually are they doing and where the money is being spent?
I found it. Do you mind if I just take 30 seconds and read it out for you?
Lovely, because that'll hit us with the right in the heart what's going to happen here. Okay,
pay awards and increased costs are among the factors behind a forecast overspend of almost £30 million. Actually, it's £27.2 million over budget for 23-24. The accounts show a forecast overspend of £27.2 million, but Manx Care says it's expecting a sum to be approved by the DHSC's reserve, which will reduce that total to £22.2 million. So they're hoping for £5 million from reserves. It's expected a pay award for Manx Care employees above 2% is among the pressures on the board's budget. Manx Care stating this accounts, the 2% pay award accounts for £7.2 million overspend. Staffing costs for the year are £0.9 million, so that's £900,000 over budget. The board's Finance, Performance and Commissioning Committee also cites an increased spend of £24.4 million compared to a budget increase of £20 million, and the committee's report says the overspend is a concern and it's escalated it to the Manx Care board. So the board meeting is this week.
Yes, I believe so. But my concern on this is we have a minister and members in a department, and we have the council of ministers. And I'm just wondering what actually has been the overspend. Okay, they'll produce the accounts and stuff. But what do we put Manx Care in for? In my opinion, Manx Care was to look at issues that the hospital maybe weren't doing or couldn't do, and then to try and have savings from other sources to make these other things happen. And I just wonder what the Public Accounts Committee, because we forget that there is scrutiny themselves, but there is the Public Accounts Committee under Mr. Watson, the Speaker, is to look at these things for the public to say, are we getting value for money, or are we just losing money for some other reason, whether it's extra staff or what, or we're just ploughing money into something which is never going to happen.
I mean, I just wonder, as you say, when Manx Care was created, it was created to put a difference between political and operational, and it was there to save money, but you just wonder whether or not they've given them a job that they can't do. Maybe, the DHSC will be asking, or Treasurer will be asking for Manx Care to save money, and it just may be that circumstances have changed, and if they do cut money, it may be from things that don't affect many people. Just like we were hearing from Kerry Sharp last week, we're using agency social workers for foster care, which will cost thousands more than if we had our own social workers. But and again, Kerry Sharp said this. Looking after disadvantaged children it doesn't get an immediate response like a cancer machine or surgeons needed.
Yeah, and the other thing is we don't know is regarding the other arm of, not the hospital side of it, there is social care and homes and the likes of the ones coming on the Glen side, and the one that was up north, Cummelmore, remember? All of a sudden they made a statement it was going to close. Then the minister had to jump in.
Yeah.
Hey ho, he's the minister for Ramsey, and the Treasury minister's involved there as well, and it stopped.
And the home in Peel as well, David.
Well, yeah, I know. And we were out the other day with a group of people in the minibus that I go out with, and we looked at several places, and one of them was the old place in Peel. Thinking to myself, okay, it wanted some adaptation and thing, but I don't see that on the radar, and I just wonder whether the social side of the health service is the poor relation, like you say, and when people need what we call occupational help, when people are elderly, they're wanting assessments for showers or handrails or small adaptations, you used to call it. There was a fund for it, and wonder where that still exists. Maybe I'll ask the Treasury Minister when he comes on.
Well, and of course, that's Treasury. It's Treasury. I'm not saying, again, I'm oversimplifying for clarity's sake, but it's the Treasury's job often just to say no, isn't it?
Well, yes, but then justify it. And then, you have, I don't know whether ministers have department meetings anymore with people, or whether the members are in a department are taking an active role. That's the thing. That's where we need the check and the balance to say the political members in a department are the check and the balance for the public. To say if a minister's going rogue or a minister wants to go down his own track, but he's forgot to tell the rest of his members where he was going. We don't see that anymore.
And you mentioned adult social care. Manx Care themselves brought this up in their very comprehensive report. They had some issues regarding staffing. There was talk of nepotism and bullying in adult social care. And again, that's a big thing that they have to sort out. Historic problems like that, you can't just sort them out in a fortnight. They take a long time. And again, when you're competing in a pool of labour for, not the highest paid job working in adult social care, but you have to treat older people with dignity and respect.
Correct. And that's the other thing. We need to move these issues on. As I say, Glenside must be nearly finished now. I wish somebody would come on and tell me, or even a guy, or even one of the workers down there would say to us, or even the department would say to us, look, it's another month and we're up and running. We're going to satisfy those people that's in Retna Bay and give them a better quality of life as we come towards the winter.
OK. All right, David.
See you, boy.
Good to hear from you. Thanks for that. 21 minutes after 12. Yes, next Tuesday, Dr. Allinson's on, the Treasury Minister, so he'll be able to give us an up-to-date summary of the situation as to where we are within this particular administration week. Tomorrow then, Teresa Cope, Chief Exec of Manx Care. This coming Friday's tourism special has been postponed till next month. Sadly, Tim Crookall and Deborah Heather, Tim Crookall, the political member, and Deborah Heather, the Chief Exec from Visit Isle of Man, sadly had to rearrange that from this Friday. Having said that, I've got a big pile of tourism questions, so I will keep those. And if you want to send a message in regarding tourism, it's what Visit Isle of Man. No tourist board anymore, no Minister of Tourism anymore, no Minister of Fun anymore. Visit Isle of Man is located inside the Department for Enterprise, and Deborah Heather is the Chief Exec of that. So any thoughts on tourism, do get in touch, but that has been postponed until next month. A quick word also regarding this. I've been asked to tell you this regarding some roadworks that have been postponed, and they're the roadworks around Ballabruey. It was the first day back to school today, and obviously around Ballabruey there's a cut through from Quarterbridge Road up to Ballacomine High School, and Isle of Man Energy, Manx Gas, as is now, we're doing some work in Ballabruey Drive and Devonshire Road. It's been postponed until a week today. So the road closure that was in effect between the junction of Ballabruey Drive and Devonshire Road will be from next Wednesday, a week today, for up to 2 weeks, and there will be restrictions on street parking next to the junction. The scheduled bus service will divert along Ballabruey Way, with the exception of the school bus, service 36 in the afternoon, which will be given permission to actually drive through the works. Be careful. Anyway, that's a week today. It should be on now, but it's a week today, that work for them. And messages in on the text today. Thank you for texting in. A note in that just says, can any listener in Port St Mary tell us what the Commissioner's interests are? Because they aren't yet disclosed on the Commissioner's website. At the moment it says to be confirmed. Really, is that good enough? Having been a foster carer, it's a wonderful and very rewarding thing to do. Unfortunately, after looking after several children, we had to withdraw from the programme due to the negative impact it had on younger members of our family. Manx social workers would frequently and at the last minute change a foster child's contact plans, sending the child into a spin. While change is manageable for adults, looked after children need structure, routine, and they need plans to be kept. Unfortunately, a lot of the issues come from poor organisation, poor planning. Hopefully Manx Care can improve things for the benefit of all children and carers. And thank you for that. Text of 520. Foster child's contact plans are often the contact that a foster child will have with their birth parent, and sometimes it's been said they can change at the last minute. Last night, a recent traveller on the Manxman noted even though the weather was flat calm, arriving at Heysham, the ship slowed right down and had to board a pilot to be escorted into harbour. Is this going to be the norm, and at what cost, says Ali? Well, at the moment, the steam packet tell us that it's really a kind of education plan, getting used to it, the masters that they've got on board. Making sure that they get... Remember, Heysham has got a very narrow channel because of the way that the shoreline is at that part of Lancashire. The channel is very narrow, it is prone to silting, and the last thing we want is for our shiny new boat to be stuck outside 2 nuclear power stations. So they're taking their time while they get used to it. I'm sure everything will be fine in the long run. We should just scrap the wind turbines and use the £40 million to fund Manx Care. We should support Manx people and not global agendas, says 039. 1 minute Manx Care are short of staff, impacting services, yet part of the overspend is put down to salary increases. I'm trying to see, does this add up, says G313. Manx Care was created to save the politicians, whoever was the health minister at the time. Well, actually, it was the Sir Jonathan Michaels report that created it. I went to apply to be a foster parent. Unfortunately, I live in a 2-bedroom government-owned property. I've asked if I could apply to get a 3-bed private property, was advised I wasn't eligible even though I want to progress. I want to become a foster parent. Unfortunately, I can't do it now because of where I live. We went through a special guardianship order a few years ago. I'll tell you, we won't do it again. We were belittled and made to feel worthless. Oh, well, tell me more about that. Drop me an email confidentially if you can tell me more about that. And also, can we give a big shout out to all the lads travelling today to play for FC Isle of Man? From Dean the Raven. Yes, the Ravens are on the road tonight. Actually, and of course, this Saturday, first time in ages, if you want to see FC Isle of Man, they're live at the Bowl this Saturday. And of course, we'll have live commentary as well. It'll be worth public health clarifying COVID guidance for workers pressured to attend work with symptoms, says Texas. And why didn't they do Richmond Hill during the school holidays, says Sue. Oh, Sue. Well, the story about this bus driver who's complained, and I don't know whether, and I'm not trying to stir anything up, but I'd just love to know what the situation is with COVID, because anecdotally there seems to be a bit around. Now, we don't know whether it's just the time of the year. Certainly we'll start to be getting coughs and colds and bugs, because as from today, the children have gone back to school, so that will be no doubt impacting parents and teachers, perhaps you. But the DOI has offered to provide masks, sanitizer and gloves to bus drivers who are fearful about contacting COVID-19. Well, the driver, these aren't his words, we voiced them because they want to remain anonymous, but the driver says he's unhappy about the lack of protective screens on Manx buses.
I believe I caught COVID from the work environment, either due to screens being removed from buses or from other employees. I asked what the procedure was on testing positive, and I was told you can still work if you feel fit to, but we'll have to wear a mask. Once I discovered the screens were coming down, I raised this with my line management, who told me gleefully that it had been approved by them and the union, so there was nothing I could do about it. Once the screens came down, your senses were assaulted by underwashed or heavily perfumed body odours, and other drivers expressed similar sentiments to me. I've had to push passengers off me who seem to think it's okay to typically touch my exposed forearm with their open hand, and people who've had a few drinks on their night out now have the opportunity to lean right into you as they stagger about. From a few conversations with other drivers, I would say they are disappointed and coming to realise that the union reps only represent their own interests, as pay negotiations are going nowhere, which is exactly what management and the union reps want, in my opinion. I have heard from long-serving drivers that previously, if drunk, you weren't allowed on a bus. I worked as a bus driver in the UK, where not having a screen would have been unthinkable. If management really think it's the driver's job to transport and manage sick, drug-addled people, a proper security screen makes it much easier and safer for everyone.
In response, the DOI says the screens were installed at the start of the initial COVID outbreak to provide additional protection for drivers from the risk of viral transmission and are not designed or robust enough to work as security screens and are now approaching end of life. Many drivers were unhappy at the continued use of the screens, as it restricts movement within the cab to a small degree and reduces the quality of the interactions with customers. The decision to remove the screens was taken with careful and protracted consideration after representations from the Joint Health and Safety Committee and a number of the drivers' representatives. The statement goes on to say the incidence of physical attacks on drivers in the cab is reassuringly low compared to the UK and does not justify the fitment of security screens, adding there's only been a single report raised of encroachment into the cab by a passenger in the previous 2 years. The department says it will continue to provide masks, sanitizer and gloves to drivers should any of them be concerned at the risk of contracting COVID or any other virus.
The concerns of a bus driver and also the response from the DOI. So I'd like to know what you think. Do you think COVID's on the rise again? I don't want to tempt Providence, but it's nice to just take a litmus test, a poll really, of what's happening. Are you still testing, by the way? Well, we are here at the radio station. There's still tests around. Do you think protective screens should be reinstalled on public transport and shops? And also, bus drivers mention about security screens on Manx buses and the DOI's response, there's been one encroachment in 2 years. Do you think it would take something away from Manx buses if we did put security screens up? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hi, Andy. Just listen to you saying about that bus driver. If you read his comments, he sounds like a man or an individual with a huge chip on his shoulder. I haven't heard anything from anybody else. I know quite a few of the other drivers, especially when he brings up the unions are doing nothing. They're in cahoots with the DOI and all this, that and the other. So it sounds like he's, got a major chip on his shoulder and he's wanting to stir trouble. But would that same individual refuse to go into a shop where there are no screens and he hasn't got people bumping into him? He have his own individual space. Does he want to go back to the 2 metre distance again? There's a load of things that this individual has brought up, but what riles me, it's obviously somebody that's come to live on the island, because he said on the mainland this wouldn't be allowed to happen. Well, you are on the mainland now, and this is where he's living, and he should accept the rules of this country. If he wants to go back to the mainland, as we just said now, there might be a boat in the morning.
And a brand new one as well.
A brand new one and all. But there's thousands of people there. All the girls and the fellas down at Tesco, they took those screens down ages ago. They've taken a myriad of screens down. I haven't heard those bleating. So this is something that should be taken with a pinch of salt, simply because I think it's one individual with a gripe. And the media have picked up on it and obviously blown it out of all proportion.
Well, I'm just interested, Howard. How much
of an hour of fame?
How much? Are you hearing anything about COVID these days?
Oh, you hear about it all the time. COVID was the best cure for flu. We never heard of flu while we had COVID.
Interesting. The thing is, nobody wants to go back to, as you say, that 2 metre rule and
no.
peering at people through masks.
Stickers on the floors in places as a reminder. And I was only thinking the other day when we were down at Tesco, how we used to all walk around a single file like zombies, and there'd be someone at the end of each aisle telling you which way to go. Who wants to go back to that?
And do you remember the queues around the supermarket, outside, waiting in the car park?
Oh, they were, yeah. They're queue right down to the far end of the car park, waiting for you and keeping your distance. Now, this individual wants to go back to that. That's fine. Let him go back to his mainland, where they can put a screen up round him.
All right, thanks, Howard.
But that other one I was saying about the Richmond,
yeah.
I read it a little while ago that not only just resurfacing, I think they're renewing water pipes as well. So they'll have that dug up and then filled, pipes in, and resurfaced. But it's not a major diversion. You've only got to go half a mile down the road and turn right, and you're on the bottom of the Richmond again.
Yeah.
So, you wonder at the mentality of people saying, why did they do it in the school holiday? They were the first ones that would have been complaining.
All right. Thanks, Howard.
Take care. Bye now.
A note in from Jimmy just said, Andy, I've just come back from Estonia. I went to Edinburgh, Cyprus and Vietnam. What's your carbon footprint like, Jimmy? I couldn't believe the amount of masks. Absolutely every country said COVID was rife. I felt unsafe. Seriously, I hope it's not coming back to haunt us. Thanks, Jimmy. I don't want to overstate this, but I'm just interested as to what your feeling is regarding this. What about that new Frank Matcham wine bar as well? How did they get planning permission to put fixed glass panels on the Villa Walkway footpath? Surely a hazard for partially sighted or disabled people. It's a public footpath. Well, they must have got planning for it. You can't just do things. I'm sure they're there. Thanks also to text, this is 768, who just says, I think the health, education and emergency services should be given as much money as they need before anything is wasted on madcap projects. Which madcap projects, Sue? It's an easy thing to say, though, as much money as they need. nobody ever surely puts in a reducing budget, do they? Everything goes up. Wasn't Manx Care set up to operate at arm's length from politicians? And in other words, don't blame the politicians when things go wrong. Cynical me. Cynical you, David. 425. But that's your opinion. So that's it, of course. DHSC separate. Laurie Hooper has said it. The minister says what the minister says. They advise Manx Care, but Manx Care operates that huge budget, and at the moment scheduled to go over the budget. But then again, DHSC used to go over budget, didn't they? And a note in also from the captains have to do a number of port entries to get their pilot exemption certificate, says Texter 338, which is why they're using pilots at the moment to get into Heysham. A certain number of port entries to get their pilot exemption certificate.
At ShopRite, a big slice of our range is continually priced to match or better other supermarkets. We call it Price Match Plus, the plus being what others simply don't match. Like ShopRite Savers, low prices, choice and value you won't get elsewhere, with brands like Sainsbury's and no need to travel miles. Plus, the difference being locally owned makes. We're loyal supporters of local food producers and businesses and benefit the Manx economy directly. ShopRite, proudly locally owned.
We are number one, we are family run. Mike's Motors, Mike's Motors.
All the nice motors are at Mike's Motors. From cars you can cruise in to motorhomes you can all snooze in. Whether you want to plug it in overnight or plug through muddy fields all day, no one has a better selection of quality used motors. So come and see why Mike's Motors are better by miles.
Mike's Motors.
Call 823-200. Click mikesmotors.im.
The Ramsey Garden Centre sale is now on, featuring a huge range of garden items at vastly reduced prices. Don't delay. Grab a garden bargain now. There has never been a better time to visit Ramsey Garden Centre. Open 7 days a week on Albert Road, Ramsey.
So, how much do you make on your savings?
I'm not sure. Not enough.
Then check your rate and compare it to the Guernsey Bank Skipton International, because right now they're offering a fixed rate of 5.7% gross AER when depositing £50,000 or more. It could be much more than your current provider, so why not switch to Skipton International?
Skipton International is not registered and not licensed by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority. Deposits made with Skipton are not covered by the IOM Depositors Compensation Scheme. No withdrawals allowed until maturity. Interest is paid annually. Skipton International is licensed to take deposits by the GFSC and is a participant in the Guernsey Banking Deposit Compensation Scheme. Details at dcs.gg. T's and C's apply.
Get ready for another winning weekend on Manx Radio.
It's the Isle of Man Food and Drink Festival on the 16th and 17th of September. And this weekend, you could win a weekend pass and a Robinson's breakfast hamper.
Visit manxradio.com and answer the competition question for your chance to win. You can enter as many times as you like.
Then make sure you're listening to Manx Radio Breakfast on Monday morning when we'll announce the winner.
Make this your winning weekend with your nation station, Manx Radio.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
21 minutes ahead of 1 now. Ian's with us now. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Andy. Just a quick one. On the point about protective screens and bus drivers, I think a very serious point is being missed here. Those screens don't just protect the bus driver, they also protect the passengers from the bus drivers. Why should we need to be protected from the bus driver? You just mentioned in the programme, schools have gone back today. Most of the bus drivers drive school buses. They are exposed to every new germ that's going round straight after the holidays. No screens. Any old person getting on, using their bus pass, has to stand there while it takes 5 seconds to go. The bus driver could be a super spreader and not know it. The screens work both ways.
So do you think we should have them?
I absolutely found no problem while we did have them.
Okay.
I do think they do give a degree of protection.
Ian, where are you?
I'm in Peel.
All right. What's the bird in the background? What is it?
That's a rook.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's 63 nests in the woods behind us here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Just a second. All right. Thanks for calling today.
Okay, cheerio.
19 minutes before 1. Thanks for that. And Andy's with us now. Hi, Andy.
It's Julian. Hello.
Oh, sorry. I've got Andy written down here. It's Julian. Hi, Julian.
I don't think the screens do a lot with something that's 1,000 times smaller than a human hair, so I'm not sure if the screens are going to do much at all, really, especially as they're so light, they float around all over the place, and they reckon the Japanese study in restaurants said that the stuff goes 60 feet, so... And also, of course, the mask, there's lots and lots of studies now saying that masks don't do anything. You know, you've got gaps below your eyes, out the sides. Anybody who looks up Dr. Vape Mask, take a look at that video. You'll get a perfect idea because the vape molecules are bigger than the virus particles. So, which brings me to the fact that it's September, which is the sun's highest daily level above the horizon, at which point it sinks to the point where ultraviolet B, which allows us to make vitamin D, is not possible between now, more or less towards the next couple of weeks, and mid-March next year. So you've got the research in Germany and Canada that I've mentioned, over 300,000 patients living around our same kind of 54-degree latitude. High percentage of society don't realise that they're severely depleted in vitamin D, especially if they stay in during the summer. And if they work in offices, it's almost impossible, unless you're going to strip off and lie on the beach if you get a nice day. And even in some southerly countries that have a more modest clothing covering, you have the same problem. Now, I've spoken to a couple of doctors, and they're saying the vast majority of people require at least 10 times the recommended supplement level of 400 IUs to achieve optimum levels, which you only know about with a vitamin D blood test, which very few people ever get. If anyone's worried about their vitamin D levels, ask a GP, see if they'll do you a vitamin D test. At least then you know, because I think the elephant in the room is most people now never get a vitamin D blood test. So if you don't know, it would be like if you had a very low B12 blood count. You'd want to sort that out. You know, you take your vitamin B12 supplements, which a lot of people even have pernicious anemia, and they have to get an injection every 3 months. The Endocrine Society, who are the experts in this, recommend, now there's 2 measures. The British use nanomoles, which is an older measure, of 100 is getting towards optimum levels. A lot of the studies in America, which is where most of the studies are in a different thing, which is nanograms, which is a bit like inches and centimetres. So to get to nanograms, you have to divide by 2.5. So 100 becomes 40 nanograms in the study. So you have to be a bit careful when you look at your readings.
What do you have to eat to get vitamin D? What must you eat? Can't you just eat stuff with vitamin D in it?
If you want to get vitamin D from food, you've got to go back to what we used to do, which is bone broth, things with bones in. So it comes out from the marrow, and that's where the vitamin D is stored with animals that are eating grass that's irradiated by ultraviolet throughout the summertime. Now, I did notice the other day that somebody said about toxicity from vitamin D. So if anybody is worried about toxicity from vitamin D, you have to check with your GP if you have sarcoidosis. It's the only thing that stops you from absorbing properly. But there are 2 of the biggest studies ever done. The first one is a Matthew Krasowski, Krasowski, from the University of Iowa. And the other guy, who is probably the lead guy in the world at the Mayo Clinic, is a Daniel Dudenkov, Dudenkov. And they found that people taking 50,000 IUs a day were not showing any signs of any toxicity or hypercalcemia, where you have too much calcium in the diet. They do recommend that you take a combi one with something called vitamin K2, which is named after the second highest mountain in the world. Well, not after it, but it's coincidentally. And that helps to get the calcium that you eat from butter and milk into your bones, so you don't end up with, like all these weird calcification things in your sinews and things. So you can get a vitamin K3 with... vitamin K2 with vitamin D3 little combi. You can get it in a spray or drops, or you can get the little tiny gel, the little tiny tablets.
I had an auntie who used to make her own oxtail soup years and years ago. I'm guessing that would do it as well.
Was she often ill?
No, this was it's before mad cow disease. So
right, okay.
She didn't. I never noticed her being ill, but it was it was a very rich soup. I do remember that, but I don't think anybody makes homemade oxtail anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
My final comment on it is Chris Smith, the top virologist at Cambridge University, said less than 2 weeks ago, the latest variant's mutations make it weaker, which is totally normal as time goes on, because viruses want to spread as far as possible, so you don't want to get rid of your subjects, so they become milder but easier to catch. And Chris Smith's last comment was, there's nothing to worry about as this new variant.
All right, thanks, Julia.
Thanks, Andy.
Good to hear from you. I have never been sick with COVID, says Mark, and I'm sick of hearing about it. Thank you for that. The bus screens weren't crash tested, apparently, so legally they shouldn't have been fitted to a public transport vehicle, so the DOI need to take them down, really. We came back from Spain with COVID for the third time I've had it. Had to be cautious with vulnerable mum, so we didn't mix until negative flu and COVID symptoms and vertigo, says Sue in Douglas. Thank you for that, Sue. I got a message in with lots of people telling me all about the pilots in Heysham. Think of it as having R-plates, says L on 535. Masters of the ships boats have to become familiar with all the ports in different weather and at different tides, so give them a chance. That's what we need then, a giant R-plate on the Manxman. I got COVID 6 weeks ago, although I had the vaccination. It was horrendous. I hope they bring the jab back because I'll be getting it, says Anne. Text, email, call on WhatsApp. Manx Will says, look, is there anything Manx Radio could ask DEFRA as to why they're draining wildlife wetlands around Balaf Curragh? I heard this. Is this true? I've had that suggestion many times. Manx Will says it's destroying the ecosystem when they bang on about the airs and stopping the campers. Several normal humans have been trying to get their attention, but getting nowhere. And parts are being sold off, says Manx Will. If you can give us some more detail about this, are DEFRA draining the wetlands up the north? A note in that also says it's all Vangelis' fault. Vangelis is the problem.
Do you want to hear something really exciting?
No, not really. But you're probably going to tell me anyway, aren't you? This is an advert.
Well, could you pretend?
Are you going to?
Yes.
Go on then. Let's get it over with.
I Am One, A New Hope, the latest in the long and undistinguished line of satirical comedy programmes on Manx Radio, is going live.
Yes! Your chance to enjoy a live performance of I Am One, the show which takes the proverbial out of Manx life, Manx politics and Manx radio.
That's live at the Peel Centenary Centre on Saturday, the 23rd of September, with free beer. Yes, free beer courtesy of our friends at Bushy's.
Free beer? Wow!
Get your tickets now, hipsters. Just £10 online at centenarycentre.com, with all proceeds going to charity.
That it? Is it funny?
Funny. It's laughable.
I Am One, A New Hope, live at the Peel Centenary Centre. It's not funny.
It's laughable.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
And it's 10 to 1 now. Sandy's with us now. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Andy. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Yeah, it's a nice day. Everybody's happy.
Good. I just want to mention to you that I think a lot of people who listen to Mannin Line would be worried by what Julian has just said, and often speaks as if he's a medical man. Now, if he is, he should say at the beginning of his talk, or his talking, that who he is and what his qualifications are, because he's scaremongering. And really, it shouldn't be allowed on our local station for somebody to spout about medical issues, unless it's personal and it's to do with the Manx people. So I'm just wanting to highlight to you that elderly people, or anybody really, listening to Julian spout on about things that he may not be qualified to do, doesn't matter how much research he does, he is not an expert. And I really feel strongly that he isn't the sort of person we need on Mannin Line.
Well, no, I mean, that's interesting. Remember, he is giving an opinion. I mean, I don't think anywhere does he say this is what you should do.
I know, but it doesn't matter. He's spouting as if he's an expert. And, you know, it isn't a good idea, Andy, really. If you have queries about medical things, then you should go to your doctor, or you should have a doctor online like you used to have. And that's fine. I do think he often spouts all this research he's doing, which could be terribly faulty, and he's giving the wrong information, and I think he should be stopped, really.
Well,
okay,
that's fine, Sandy. I mean, I'll tell you, nobody stopped from coming on Mannin Line, and you, as you know, as a listener, and you're as important as Julian, you have your opinion, and you've just given it, and everybody takes that on board. And I'm happy you did that, Sandy.
Okay.
Thanks for calling today. A note in from Charles, who just says, I fully agree. Crikey, there's another one then. I fully agree regarding the vitamin D deficiency. As a long-haul pilot, says Charles, when I fly, I'm shielded from UV light, and I often fly overnight and sleep during daylight hours. A study is being conducted, and initial findings find that daily recommended supplement dosage is inadequate. So that's Charles, the long-haul pilot's version of this vitamin D thing. Nowhere, I have to tell you, nowhere in Mannin Line is there any medical advice. I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not telling you what to eat, what to take, or what you should think. But I will tell you that Vangelis may perhaps not be the problem, but could be the answer. And it's all to do with albedo. Albedo. A note in from Mikey the Oracle said, Andy, there's a commonly overlooked factor of global warming that some global warming skeptics, i.e. The people who want to ignore what they say is global warming at the moment, or global climate change, it's called the albedo of the planet. It's the measurement of the reflection of the sunlight from the planet Earth. Its range is 0 to 1. 1 is total reflection of light, whilst 0 is total absorption of light, a black body. Snow on the ice caps reflect light, and while the ocean and forest actually absorb more light, being darker, it's interesting that the 1979 composer Vangelis, in 1976, the late composer Vangelis, the man who wrote Chariots of Fire, released a track called Albedo .39. Crikey, it's Vangelis. We should bring him back. Hi, Vivian.
Hiya, Andy. That lady that was on, in a sense, criticising Justin, I'm afraid I disagree with her. I find the things he says, and I'm an old person, very interesting to understand, especially if you've got some of these problems where you need vitamin D or you need vitamin C or something that you get from your doctor. It's very interesting to hear these things that are being said by professors and specialists across the world.
Now, you don't feel pressured into doing anything, taking vitamin D because of it, no?
No, I've been told by the doctor I need it, so they prescribe it, I take it. But I'm sorry, I find that rather naughty to criticise somebody that's trying to tell us what's going on in the world.
Okay, all right, Vivian, thanks for that.
Okay.
Good to hear from you. COVID is not a cold, says 423. It's worse than flu. I currently have COVID. It is horrendous. Text to 423. If the bus drivers want screens, give them screens. I've been so careful to try and avoid getting COVID again, as my original infection left me with long COVID, and I needed a wheelchair a lot of the time. I've been so ill since testing positive at the weekend, and anyone in a public-facing role should have the right to protect themselves. Nobody wants to go back to the way things were, but if somebody has COVID, they owe it to others to wear a mask. if they're mixing with others or to stay at home. Personally, I've been so very unwell, I couldn't have gone out anywhere anyway. So can we get something straight? I'm not recommending you take anything, buy anything, get anything off the internet. I'm not recommending any course of action where this is concerned. You're an adult, you make your own mind up. What Mannin Line does do is provide a forum for opinion. You're perfectly at liberty to agree or disagree with anything people say. It's called a public forum for discussion. Right, that's it. Schools are back today, so we can expect sore throats and everything for the next few weeks. Thanks to Chris Quirk on the phones today. Clarkie's on next.
WINT